If you're a medical professional wanting to up your financial game, you're going to want to stay tuned today because we're going to talk about emergency funds. Maybe you've already got something going, but we're going to talk about kind of how much you should have, how you should look at it, and how accessible it needs to be. So there's a lot going on in the world today, right? We're all worried about car repairs, medical expenses, job loss, all kinds of things that can happen that are going to impact our finances. So you're going to want to stay tuned till the end because I've got a valuable free resource for you. Today, we're talking about why having an emergency fund is important. I would say critical, and how much you need to save. So, what is an emergency fund? Well, an emergency fund is exactly that. It's money that you've got put aside for things that you're not expecting to happen. So, there's three pictures here. One, we've got someone with a broken leg. Let's just say a medical emergency. Could be somebody that loses their job, even in transition of changing to another job. And then the third one is car problems. And so all of these things are things that were unexpected, things that happen that were not planned, and all of them involve having to make some sort of payments. So what we're looking for is a way to cover those things that happen unexpected. And what I can tell you is that in my life, I've had my share of emergencies. I've had all of these things on the screen. I've also had a fire that basically I was kicked out of my house for over a year while they did the rebuilding. And while, we think of that as an emergency and people automatically think, oh, insurance will cover it. The thing to think about when we're talking about an emergency is that even if there is coverage, the money doesn't come as quickly as you think it's going to. Okay. In my case, it took quite a while because I wasn't willing to settle for a lowball offer on getting the repairs done. And that's what happens a lot of times when we're talking about insurance. It could be your car insurance, it could be your home insurance. But what we're looking for is that financial safety net that's going to protect yourself from life's curveballs. So how much should I save in my emergency fund? Well, at a minimum, I would say 3 to 6 months. There's a lot of people that are out there saying now that it should be a year or more because of what happened with the pandemic. But here's what I would say. Don't get tangled up in exactly how many months. But if you haven't started, you need to start, work your way towards a month, 3 months, 6 months, and then maybe even gradually to a year. So when I talk about minimum expenses, I'm thinking about what does it cost you per month on a minimum to survive for you and your family. So this is going to be your mortgage or rent. It's going to be your utilities. It's going to be your car payment. It's going to be your food. Don't forget the water and anything else that you might be paying for on a monthly basis that you need to make sure is covered. This is your financial cushion because the last thing that we want to do is think about cash flow, think about how our money is working while we're in the middle of emergency. So in your line of work, you may see a lot of emergencies. You may see people coming in and think about that. Every time they're showing up in an emergency, there's money behind that. There's money behind that of how are they going to pay for this? How are they going to survive in the meantime? How's it affecting their family? So this is why we want an emergency fund. So building your emergency fund, we're going to set clear goals, making saving a priority. So the clear goals is going to go back to those expenses and say, do I have enough for a month, 3 months, 6 months, same criteria that we use, and then we're going to prioritize that. So making it automatic, this can be as simple as your paycheck is coming into your checking account, and every month you're taking a certain amount of that and you're putting it into a savings account, setting that aside for emergencies. Now, I don't want you to think about that as your vacation fund because it's not your vacation fund. All right. This is your emergency fund that you've always got it and you've got access to be able to get to it. So one thing that I would talk about when we talk about an emergency fund here is that your investments are not an emergency fund. You can't access that very quickly. Your 401k is not an emergency fund. In both of those cases, you can't get to the money very fast. And the other issue is that that's money that you've put aside that you're saving for your future self. Call it retirement, call it whatever you want to do later in life. And you don't want to interrupt the compounding of what's going on in there. Worst case scenario is, let's say the market had a huge drop. You have an emergency. You've taken the money out of your investments, your 401k. And now, because you've used up that money, you're not going to catch the upside when things are going back up again. So try not to interrupt your 401k, try not to interrupt your investments, but actually put money aside in account just for emergencies. So cutting expenses, when we talk about cutting expenses, people always think people are living paycheck to paycheck. And if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you must be poor. Well, what I can tell you is that there's a lot of people living paycheck to paycheck that are not poor. And the reason is we've got inflation, right? Inflation, things are going up in price, but we've also got lifestyles that are increasing faster than our money is coming in. Okay. So you could be making a lot of money living paycheck to paycheck. You could be making a little bit of money living paycheck to paycheck, but we want to look at where we're spending our money. And if we're not able to save and we don't have any type of emergency fund, we want to figure out how to get that quickly. Okay. Recently had a conversation with a medical professional down in Houston, and she was very worried about paying off debt, paying off these credit cards, and she's just finishing paying off a car. And what I said was that while she's going to have that car payment free, I think it's $400 a month or something here in the next couple months, let's make good use of that money. Let's take a chunk of it and be paying off the debt. And then let's take a piece of it, even if it's $100 a month, $150 a month, and put that into an emergency fund. And she really liked that because her family had a major emergency last year, and that's what got her in the credit card debt to start with. So because she didn't have an emergency fund and she's paying it off on credit cards, now she's paying 21% interest because she didn't have the emergency fund set up. So there's always kind of a balance of how you do this, right? So we don't want debt. We certainly don't want debt, but we also don't want to create debt because we had an emergency. And even because you had an emergency fund, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's enough in there to cover whatever it is that you need, but it's a starting point. Okay. So we want to stay consistent. And that goes back to making it automatic and simplifying your savings. That if you're doing it automatically, automation, right? We like automation. If we're doing that automatically, then we are consistent and our persistence is going to pay off. Again, we don't want to be thinking about money when we have an emergency. So I want you to take control, right? Take control of this, get your emergency fund set up. Even if it's a month, that's better than nothing. 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, a year would be fabulous. So don't miss out. Watch our masterclass, How to Avoid the 9 Money Mistakes That Medical Professionals Make. You can get that by either scanning this QR code or going to medmoneymistakes.com. Thank you for your time today. Thanks. See you next week.